so welcome everybody. We're so excited about this film block. And what Allison and I pride ourselves on is putting films together that complement each other or have some sort of theme or something that we see, so that when someone sees the whole block, they're like, wow, that was like seeing a feature film. And so all of your films spoke to us as being sort of like take a closer look. So meaning, you know, it's not, everything's not as it seems. Like what else is going on here? And you have to really think, and it makes you think about, that's a really interesting way to bring that subject matter forward. So I would love for each of you just to take a little bit, just to talk, because you all are just meeting each other and haven't necessarily seen each other's films. But just to talk a little bit about your film, and then we'll get into the sort of the nuances of it, and we'll get an opportunity to talk about why you created what you created. But I would love for you now just to sort of say, like Nolan, just talk about, your film, a little bit about what it's about, and then I'll move on to the next person, and then we'll have a deeper discussion about the films together. All right. So Nolan, why don't we start with you?
I'm Nolan. I directed a film called The Other, and it's about these two like assassins, and it's kind of, they're trapped in this hotel where they're stuck in this endless cycle of battles, and that's like kind of the main plot of the film. But it's used as like a metaphor for, at the time, what was happening and still happening in our society
Of gun violence
and like police brutality and all that. Like I wrote the film last summer when the protests were happening.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like I needed to make something,
Yeah.
and just say something. So, yeah, that's my film.
All right, excellent. I mean, that is what's beautiful about all of your films and the films in the festival, is that you all are filmmakers, and that's how you say something. And so we're all benefiting from that. That if we don't know what to do after George Floyd, or we don't know what to do with corruption, or we don't know, it's like you guys are out here creating these films for us, and it helps to have conversations about really important things. So Charles and Thandi, why don't you tell a little bit about your film?
All right, so to date, government officials, it follows the subject of corruption, which is a very big subject matter here in Zimbabwe. So it follows a minister who's just signed a law that declares corruption as punishable by death. And then a few minutes later, soon after that very same day, she gets a call that her own daughter has been arrested for corruption. So now it really forces her to consider and to question how passionate she is about the law and fighting corruption, and what exactly is corruption.
Yes, and it also brings about the complexity of corruption. Like there's so many layers and levels to it. Which layer do you start to deal with, and what level do you start to deal with? There are those who are forced to be corrupt, there are those who are willingly corrupt, and then there are those who are just caught in the system. So it's which layer do you deal with first when you're dealing with corruption? And to what extent do you go death penalty, or, because the ripple effects of corruption ultimately lead to people dying. So do we then give the death penalty to corruption, or what's the recourse on corruption? That's what we're dealing with there.
I know, I mean, when Allison and I saw it, we were just like, oh my gosh, what is she gonna do, right? So that's why it was sort of like, take a closer look at what's going on. She has battling this whole, she's the government official, and now she's got to figure out, her daughter who lives with privilege and has always been able to get away with everything. There's this whole strife about whether she's going to have to die because of it. I mean, it was like not what you expected. I expected so, but I don't want to give it away because they haven't seen it yet. But anyway, so yeah, so yours is like that whole idea and concept around corruption, and then using your film to tell a story, but not telling us yet what happens, and then taking a closer look at all of these things that are going on. So Akilah, what about your film?
Hi, everybody. I'm Akilah. So my film is about, essentially it's about microaggressions, and it follows this young Black woman who's moved into this building in the Hollywood Hills, and she's like the only Black woman in her building. And she's kind of experiencing some being othered by her neighbors in this building. Simultaneously, she receives a notification on an app called Neighborly that there's an unhoused white woman in the Ivar tunnel, just like a block away, and that people should be kind to her. So she feels that, you know, it's kind of not fair that everybody's rallying around this white homeless woman when she's kind of being othered in her own home. So she goes out one night, has a conversation about that with one of her friends, and then afterwards decides to confront the said homeless woman. And it's like a short little thriller. My first film.
Your first film. Woohoo!
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, that was I want to get into talking about that a little bit more, about what you know, ultimately what happens to her and how she sort of like changes after this conversation, and what does she do, right? It's like, what is she, things aren't as they seem. And Davis, what about your film?
Sure. So, I mean, I've been working on this film for a long time with the creative director, Micha, Borneo. This idea was actually brought.
Well, you got to say the name of your film.
Oh, sorry, my bad, guys. The name of the film was Code Switch. The story was actually brought to me. The whole idea and concept was actually brought to me by Micha.
Yeah, I wasn't named on this, so I haven't been speaking, but I can definitely speak on it given that it's my story.
Perfect.
But yeah, it's Code Switch essentially is a short film. It follows a Black trans person, and it talks about erasure, which I think is something that if you are a Black trans person, if you're a Black non-binary person, you experience at every turn. And it's essentially a story that encapsulates what it feels like to be a Black non-binary person that is kept outside of the spaces that they're a part of. And I think that's really important to talk about, and always be reminding people that the ongoing erasure, the ongoing belittlement, and the ongoing essentially like internalized hatred towards Black non-binary people is everywhere. It's in every part of their life. And it's such a defining feature of what Black queer life is for a lot of people. And this story is just a small microcosm of that greater reality.
And the way that you tell the story is very interesting. So, which is again why it's in this sort of like block of films called Take a Closer Look. So I want to talk a little bit about that for all of you, and jump in. This is like just a conversation, as if we were having a conversation, but you all used film as a medium to bring out these stories that need to be told, but you did them in a way that it wasn't, you didn't do a documentary. You didn't do like a straight narrative film. We go from here to here to here, but you held us back and didn't give us the full picture of things until the end, oftentimes, you know, for most of you. And so I just want to talk a little bit about, you know, why you did that, why you think that's important, and why, you know, why did you want to lead the audience on this sort of like journey?
Well, for me, in my film, Ivar Tunnel Shook Ones, what's going on in Lee, the main character's head. Well, she's experiencing microaggressions. And a lot of times with microaggressions, they have you questioning your sanity a little bit. Like it's like you're being gaslit at every turn because you're not sure if you're actually experiencing like an injustice or if you're making it up in your head. So I really wanted to illuminate that by not giving the audience the full picture, like really making them question her state of mind, because she actually is questioning her state of mind and you don't really know who's right or wrong. Like, does she have a right to feel a way about a homeless person just because they're white and she's Black? Because she has a level of privilege over this homeless woman, but she still feels that she deserves, you know, to be treated the same. And so I just felt that to make it more interesting and to really get the audience like in the mindset of experiencing a microaggression, that it would be cool to show it that way.
Yeah, it worked. It definitely worked. So anyone else? Oh wait, let's Kaelo, is that how you pronounce your name? Has just joined us.
Hi, Lisa. Sorry I'm late. I didn't realize
Oh
this
no,
was-
that's okay. So basically what we're doing is we're just saying a little bit about our films. So if you can tell folks a little bit about your film, and then I just asked a question about all of your films sort of took the audience on a journey before revealing what you wanted us to learn and what you wanted us to understand. So we're just sort of like letting people talk about why they decided to make a film like that. You could have made a documentary, you could have made just a narrative film about this is what happens, but your films are so beautifully take us on this journey. We just want to talk a little bit about that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your film, and then I'm going to jump over to Nolan to talk about why he made the film that he made and the journey he took us on.
Thank you, Lisa. So my film is called Nkemefuna, and it translates to, it means what is mine cannot be lost. And it's a film that I made right a few months after moving to America. I come from Nigeria originally. I was born here, but I grew up in Nigeria. And I really knew I wanted to coming to America, that's when I became an immigrant. And I realized that, oh, I was Black, like it means something here. And that's something I wanted to explore in this film. And it follows a pair of siblings, Nigerian American immigrant, first generation immigrants who are coming to terms with their identity and race in America. And I wanted to do that in a nuanced way, in a way that we explored the intimacy of their relationship until America intrudes on it.
Yes, it does. And we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to jump over to Nolan to talk a little bit about the other, because that also was a journey. It was a violent journey, but it had a really great message, or at least the message that I saw in it. So can you talk about taking us on this journey of these two, this like just constantly killing each other, and then what we find out to be the end of it?
With the revelation at the end, my intention, like I hope it kind of works with the audience. I wanted it to recontextualize everything that came before it, because while you're watching the violence take place, the audience I think has kind of a distance to it because it's fantasy. It's these two people who can't die, but they're like stuck in this weird place where they're the only ones here and they're constantly fighting each other. But at the end of the film, with that reveal, my hope is that it kind of slams the audience in the face and makes it present for them. It makes it like this is a story about now, and kind of recontextualizes everything you just saw.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we first saw it, we were like, oh my God, like this is really like violent. And then to sort of like at the end, and I mean, people have seen it. It just was sort of like, wow, like in your face, like this is the society we're living in right now, right? We're living in a society where people are just killing each other for no reason. Is that there's this constant state of violence, and how do we move outside of that violence, and then to realize that it's the police are so much involved in that sort of violence. And there still seems to be like, you just felt like you were on this like conveyor belt, but in the beginning, while we're going through this journey, we don't know where we are. We just think we're, and it's sort of sci-fi, right? Because people, they never die, and you think you're in like a gaming movie. But the significance it has at the end is I think it's really well done, and I think it works. So I want to move over to Charles, and then to Davis, and then to Kaelo to talk about the same sort of thing. So for Charles and Thandi, it's sort of like what? So for Charles and Thandi, can you talk a little bit about, you brought us on this journey about this government official. You brought us, I love the fact that she's a woman and she's like a head of state. And we see the corruption, but what is the message that, you take us down this street about thinking, okay, she's going to be fine. But then you sort of like, don't tell us.
All right, you can go.
Yeah, so the main message is, like, as I said before, it's like the complexities of dealing with corruption. It's when you put it in a story and there's an actual situation where you've got this top official who has to make a decision. And mostly what really inspired me at first was the relationship between mercy and justice, that, showing mercy to the perpetrators comes at the cost of justice to the people who lost because of the corruption. So can there be a balance between mercy and justice? These guys that are about to be executed for being corrupt. And on the one hand, you've got people saying, but you're too harsh. And on the other hand, you've got lots of people who've died because of those two guys. And at what point does mercy and justice meet? How can you be just without going to an extreme of them just being evil? Or how can you have mercy without undermining the suffering that people have gone through because of those people? So I think it was mostly, just the juxtaposition between mercy and justice, and in line with corruption, because the line of corruption and its effects, it's kind of like, someone does this and then it has a ripple effect, and then maybe it's like 5 lines down the line, that's when you see the effect when the person dies. It's not as direct as shooting someone with a gun, but it's something that you can set in motion today, and then 5 years later somebody dies, but you're still responsible for setting in motion the corrupt activities. So it's, how do we deal with that on a day-to-day basis? And then it's someone you love, and how do you then handle that? The person you care about, and then there's this ideology that you have, this extreme ideology apparently, and this person that you love, and how do you deal with that? So just bring out the complexities of those issues.
Yeah, I think that's the message is simply that some of these issues are not always black and white, and that there are many layers that you have to look at before you make decisions. I think it goes beyond just corruption. It gets into issues where there's a need for balance, for putting justice and exercising mercy. It can apply to all the different subject matters that are even in the other short films here. But let's take a closer look, as you have said. There are many layers that we have to consider. I think that is the main message. Yeah, there are many layers to consider when coming up with solutions for some of these problems in society.
Yeah, I mean, I think for all of you, that is very true. There are so many layers, and believe me, we as curators of a film festival, we've been doing it for quite a while, 24 years, can see what you're building, and it's not easy. And I know it's not easy to be writing that, and then to be layering this, and to be really making a conscious effort to take us on this journey, and then peeling off the layers one by one. And I think that really helps to keep people engaged. I love short films. I am a huge short film fan. I think it's sometimes harder to make a short film than it is to make a feature. To go from, just to solidify the story. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for doing that. And you're right, all of your stories are not black and white. and all of your stories, we can see ourselves in any place of those layers. So I think that's a really important point, Charles, that you bring out. So I want to go to Micha and Davis to talk about Code Switch, because, you know, in watching your film, you know, exactly, you know, like what you talked about, Micha, when you were talking about, you know, erasure. But the way that you told the story in the barbershop, can you talk about your choice of using that setting, and then, you know, the character's journey? Can you tell us about that, and using that as a way to help us understand that what you were just talking about before?
Definitely, yes. I'd say, I think the use of the barbershop was really important because it's one of the most communal spaces within Black communities within the United States. And it's usually a place in which a place in which Black people commune that's heavily gendered.
Yes.
So we wanted to create that natural tension of a gendered space and a Black space simultaneously. And then placing our character there, I think, made created a lot of interesting conversations around what it's like to exist outside of, you know, a gendered space while being simultaneously in a gendered space, and kind of the paradox and the tension that arises naturally from that. So Davis, I'll let you, you know.
Absolutely, I mean, and just to keep it very brief and direct in terms of how we chose that space, one of the most powerful things for anyone who goes to the barbershop on a regular basis or has gone to the barbershop or has memories of being a child who's done that, is that it's a space that is deeply latently filled to the brim with nonverbal communication. And I think that for that reason, it was sort of the perfect choice for a film. When we were able to go in there and sort of create sort of this sort of special environment that makes it feel, at least when we're looking at it, like something that is a short film, but has sort of the weight and sort of the gravitas of a feature. So that was very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that is so true. You know, the beauty salons are the same way. You know, they are. I think it's a very interesting choice because both the barbershop and going to the beauty parlor, shop, salon, whatever you want to call it, is the same. They're very male and they're very female, right? And they have their own lyrical language, and they have and the expectation. You know your expectation when you're in there, you know you're going to be in there for 7 hours. So, and then there's going to be tons of conversation, and it really is a place to have conversation. So I really appreciated sort of that thought process about putting us in that space. And another reason why your film is in this block is because it's Take a Closer Look. Right? You have this person, this transgendered person who's in this chair. You don't know who that person is. You're making the assumption that that person is a male in a barbershop. So you're messing with everything, and then you're saying, hey, wait, we're gonna go on this little journey, and now we're not gonna explain it to you. You're gonna have to think through what your perceptions are of certain places and certain things. So I hope we got it. But I do think that, you know, I think it was, you know, and we'll talk a little bit. I want to get to Kaelo, but I also want to talk about like just the closeness, the shots, like Allison's sending me some messages, but just your camera angles and your shots and the way that you shot, you know, that your films, you know, creates its own character in your short film. So thank you for that. And then Kaelo, let's go to you about your film, because I think it's very interesting where you decided to place your film.
Yes, so most of the film, or the heart of the film, takes place in the liquor store. And I feel like it's a space that I feel I wanted to create tension. I wanted to create, like, there was no way out for them. Like, to put those characters in this place in New York, in a time in New York that is specifically charged because it was the anniversary of 9/11. I think the weight of that period is part of what makes the film what it is. And so I recently moved here, and it's just been interesting seeing, because when I moved here, and it was around 9/11 as well, I had seen some reports about how like Black firefighters were never really like put in the media, like the ones that died and gave their life during 9/11. And in this film, Nkem and Ike, their father was a firefighter, an immigrant firefighter. And to see that their hurt or their pain or their grief doesn't carry the same weight as the other guy in the store who is also grieving, but he can't see them for who they are. He can't see that they have actually paid the ultimate price for America. So that's something I wanted to explore, and I felt like the liquor store was the perfect place to do that. The gun store as well, because in the film I'm trying to play with the duality of their identity. In Nigeria, where I come from, owning guns is not a thing. It's not, nobody literally.
In most places, it's not.
Nobody owns guns. And I feel like that is something that they had to come to terms with in America, that this is something that is an American thing. And this was kind of them playing into the American side, because they are here in this country and they need to act accordingly in a way. So yeah, basically, I felt like what I was trying to do was play with the duality of their identity, and to do that through the locations and through the way the film was told and the shots.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole altercation with the white veteran, you know, and the taking place in the liquor store. I mean, all of those things are just really, it's not what you think. You think that these are two siblings going in and they're arguing about how she hasn't come home in a long time. And you're like, okay, here's this, like, they're just gonna like go at it. And then this whole thing happens. And you realize that you're in a completely different place than you were just 4 minutes ago. And you feel, and I think with all of your films, that's people feel the same way. It's like you think you're in a certain space, and then 3 minutes down the road, you're like, wait, like what? And then at the end, you're like, wow, okay, you know. And it's one of the things that we really like to do at RoxFilm, is to highlight films like this that help us think through, take a moment, and have that have audiences have that revelation, and they will. They definitely will. So let's we have probably about, I don't know, we can probably go for like another 7 minutes. I could talk forever. But I would just also love for you guys to sort of like, I know you haven't seen each other's films, but just sort of like what you've heard from them. And you know, it's interesting that Kaelo's, you know, put the gun, you know, he really felt that was important around guns in America, because no other country can have guns like that. And Nolan uses the gun violence in a way to show the ridiculousness and how you know, random and violent this, you know, life in this country is because of that reason. And so I just want to sort of talk about, if you guys want to or can, just sort of like, if the things that you've been hearing from other people about this whole concept and idea of a closer look, or things aren't what they seem. And if you just want to riff on that, about hearing other people talking about their stories, and maybe just a little more about, you know, the importance for our audience to see what you want them to see. Like, what do you want them to take away? Anyone can jump in.
Well, I guess I will say, in regards to Code Switch, I think the message is that, you know, not to project gender onto anyone, and to really allow people to be themselves in their fullest sense, even if that's outside of how you understand or even relate to yourself or to others. So.
Yeah, that's a great message. Akilah?
What I want audiences to take away in general from my film, or
yeah, from your film.
Well, they can take away from it what they like, but I hope that it just illuminated a little bit about what Black people in this country experience on a daily basis. And maybe that'll spark more empathy in viewers, and also make people who have experienced microaggressions feel less alone and know that they're not crazy. Like, they're just those little things that happen to us, and sometimes they make us feel like we're crazy, but it's just a fact of being Black in America.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. Nolan, what about you?
I think I just want in a way, like the mission of this film is just to kind of to inspire empathy. You know,
Mhm.
the whole film is about misunderstanding and
Yeah,
not seeing the person across from you, and so that's kind of that was the reason I wanted to make it, that people don't see each other, you know, and that's what I want people to take away.
that was beautiful. That's exactly, and that's, I think, what we took away from that. It's right. It's like there's no reason, no one's even stopping to say, why are we doing this? Yeah. Charles and Thandi.
Yeah, well, what we'd like people to take away from our film is basically take a closer look.
Yay, we did it. Look, we named it after what you want people to do.
Yeah, it's corruption is such a big subject here back home. So we really, and even internationally, I think it might just be at different levels of corruption, but you know, any issue that's big in your country, whatever it is, it might be corruption, gun violence, whatever issue that you're facing in your country, just take a closer look, you know, and that's what we just want people to take away with.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you know, there's the aspect of, you know, sometimes when you look to yourself, sometimes it's easy to judge someone very quickly, but then you find that in a certain way, given the same situation, you would do the same thing. Not that it's right, but sometimes it's also good to weigh yourself. Though our lead character, the minister, the woman, she makes the ultimate sacrifice for what she believes in. And this is something I wanted to inspire, that if you really believe, if you think you believe in something, even when tested against a situation where it's an impossible situation, you would remain, you would hold on to your value, you would hold on to your principles, no matter what. I think that's one of the things we wanted to put across. She was not going to lead her daughter to death, but she was also not going to compromise on her own principles.
Yeah. Wow. You guys are all you're gonna love each other's films. I can't wait till you can watch them all. I'm so excited. Kaelo, what about you?
I think for Nkemefuna, what I want the audience to take away is the several layers of complexity and intersections of the immigrant experience, and how it's not just one thing. It's even within one community, it is several things, and even when it's several things, it's several other. Like there's so many layers and so many ways that the prism divides.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said before, and I can keep saying it over and over again, the layers of complexity that you all brought into your films, into your short films, is just beautiful. And we love the way they all sort of like come together in this one mash of, you know, take a closer look, or things aren't what they seem. And I think, you know, that the audience is going to take away exactly what each one of you talk about for your films. So, you know, we want to thank you for finding us at RoxFilm. We want to Thank you for allowing us to share your vision and your voice with a wider audience. You know, we are nothing without our filmmakers. Obviously, we really heart you guys a lot. We know the work it takes to do this, and so whatever we can do to help support the work you're doing, we will continue to do that. So one last just round robin. I know this is Akilah's first film, which is really exciting. So why don't we start with you and sort of like what's next, if you're even thinking about what's next, because this is your first film.
Yes, I am. So my production company, Good Mother Films, we're in pre-production for our next film called Pedacito de Carne, and it's an all Latinx cast, and it's about a mother-daughter relationship. The daughter is a caregiver to her mother who's experiencing early onset dementia, and we find out on Wednesday if we get a grant to make it. So pray
All
for
right,
it.
well, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for you. Nolan, what about you?
I'm currently just tossing around ideas. I'm just writing right now.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Keep writing because you're a great writer.
Thank you.
You're yeah. And Charles and Thandiwe, what about you?
Yeah, well, we are working on feature film. It's murder mystery, but again, nothing is as it seems. A mother has a son accused of murder, and she has to, try and defend her son, but we're not really sure. She doesn't know really whether he's committed the crime or he hasn't. So there's maintaining the balance there for the mother.
All right, we look forward to that.
Yeah.
Micha and Davis, you might have something together or even separate.
Yeah, Davis, do you want to go first or?
Sure, that's fine. No, I have Micha and myself have a production company. And so right now I'm currently spreading out in the direction of actually developing an open world, 3-dimensional AAA style Afrofuturist video game. So we're already in the process of developing a prototype for that and building out this really cool world that also happens to be based around non-binary character and non-binary themes, which is really, really exciting. It's really huge. But yeah, we should.
That is huge because that hasn't been done. Has it been done before?
No, that's
No.
it's completely
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not going to put a timeline on that for anyone who's familiar with games. That's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
But in general, it is a really exciting thing and it should be playable on Steam soon. So
Wow,
Yeah.
exciting.
So our production company is called Discoverscape Projects. It's 5 years old. And in regards to our films, we have another short that's been in post-production for about a year. It's a heavily VFX sci-fi short, so that's kind of what's been holding it up. But yeah, it's about artificial intelligence, and it's sci-fi, it's Afrofuturist as well. And so that's going to be coming out later this year. And then we also are planning to do our first pilot in Trinidad and Tobago, where I'm from. My family's from. I'm actually the first American in my family. So we're planning to kind of broaden our horizons to the international film scene, and we're planning, and we're still in development. Well, we're out of development. I say we're definitely in pre-production now, to working towards building that set out there. And working with some filmmakers from around the world, which will be exciting, getting to meet some gaffers from, South America or even the Caribbean, I think, and not just gaffers, but just people of different production backgrounds.
A whole different crew, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we're excited, we have the game going on, we have different film projects. So yeah, it's a future for sure.
That's incredible. And Kaelo, what about you? What's on the horizon?
So in the close and immediate future, I am working on another short film titled Echoes, which follows a woman who loses her husband and is driven to madness by her grief. But in her madness, she starts to break societal strictures placed on women in southeastern Nigeria. And then hopefully after that, I will venture into making my first feature.
All right. Wow. All right. No slackers in this crowd. So, so we look forward to your next projects. Next year is our 25th anniversary. So if you're finished, which I know that's asks a lot, please submit. And you can always get in touch with Allison or I. We like to give alumni waivers, so please, please let us know what's up. You'll hear from us throughout the year too, because our social media folks like to say, hey, what are you guys are working on? And we like to push that forward on all of our channels to make sure that we're supporting you and the work that you're doing. So thank you all so much for you spent 45 minutes, sorry, taking so much of your time, but you're also brilliant and doing amazing things. We could probably talk for another hour, but thank you so much for giving your time to us. Thank you for giving your films to us, and we'll let you know how the audiences react, and I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. So thank you so much. Charles and Tandi, have a good evening. You can go to bed now because I know it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. And California folks, you still have so much of your day left. So and enjoy your days. And again, thank you so much for being with us at RoxFilm 2022.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, everyone.
Thank you.